Welcome back everyone to the Hello World Guide. This is another episode of the C++ for Beginner series, and in this video we are going to learn about how to read from files. So in the last video we learned file output. So for reading you just need to change this to an IF stream, which means an input file stream. And what you can do with that is that, for example, I've got here hi. Now if I create a, for example, integer here called x, and I go ahead and put a value here, like let's say 32, and then I go ahead and say fs, and I just do it like you do it with cin. It's basically simple. So you do that, and then you run. Then what you should see is that it's actually will put that value in x, but nothing would happen because we are not printing x yet, so nothing happened. But I'm going to go ahead and also go ahead and say cout x. Alright, now if I start that, then you can see it says 32, and if I change this value, then it will display something else. Now it's obviously you can use the getLine function like we did in cin to actually obtain full lines of text. So in this video we are going to basically try to create a small program, and then we will apply the learned knowledge in our account case study in the next video. So we are going to use the learned program to basically create a grade storing system. So when the program starts, we are going to go ahead and say cout, and we are going to ask the user input new grades, okay, or let's actually say press let's say I to input new grades, grades. Alright, and then we are going to put a new line after that, and I'm going to best add another string, which obviously if you put two strings together without any thing in between, it joins them together. So we're going to say press I to input new grades, otherwise or let's actually say press R to input, press R to read grades. Actually, why am I doing that? R, yeah, like that, to read previous grades. So this will allow the user to kind of do both things at once. So we are going to say previous grades. Now if I actually do that, and I go ahead and kind of close this, then we are going to store our grades we are going to store everything simple in a simple manner. But since we are doing both input and output, we need to change this to just an f stream, which means it will have nothing. So I'm going to which means it basically will not have input or output, it will have both. So if the user, so we are going to go ahead and take cin, and we are going to get a data, and I'm going to by the way just put a space after that, and we are going to get the data, which might be an integer, so I'm a character, sorry, I'm going to create a character here called let's say a, or let's call it operation, and then let's go ahead and take that operation in. Now we are going to go ahead and check if that operation is equal to I. Now this obviously worked fine, but if the user entered a small I, then it will cause problems. So we need to basically make sure that we so I'm going to put a small I here, and then I'm going to go ahead and add in an OR operator. An OR operator is basically like this: you put two straight lines here, and then you go ahead and say op is equal to I. Now what this basically does is that it means that this operator is equal, if it's equal to this, then it will execute, or if this is equal to this, then it will also execute. We will learn more about these operators in future videos maybe, but just remember that if you put this here, it's basically saying or. So if either one of these conditions is true, then it will do the if statement. So what we want to do is we want to input new grades, and if that is not the case, then we want to read previous grades. First we need to figure out how to input new grades. So we are going to cout and say we are going to say basically how many grades to input, this will basically kind of help us determine the number grades to input, and we are going to just put a question mark after that, and I'm going to create some variables here. I'm going to create an integer called number, and what we are going to do is after this go ahead and cin and take the number from the user, like that. And if that works, then we are going to add in a for loop. A for loop, remember, is used to repeat an action a couple of times. So we are going to create an int I, which is equal to 0, and I is less than the number. So this number I will be less than that, which means that it will execute the amount of time that the user told it to, which is obviously pretty awesome. So if that works, then we are going to actually, but though that won't work, because we need to say int I plus 1, and then we are going to say I is less than or equal to numbers. The reason we are doing that is because we want our grades roll numbers to start at 1. So we are going to basically go ahead and say out, enter grade. So we are going to say enter grade for roll number. Yeah, let's do that, and we are going to add in another sign here and just put the I here, and we are going to go ahead and say this. Okay, so that's awesome. So we are going to also obviously have a set of grades here, so I'm going to put an integer here called no, not an integer, sorry, a character here called grade, and we are going to take this grade. So if that grade for this roll number, and whatever that grade is, we are going to put that in the file. So how that file is going to be organized? Well, the idea is that I want my file to be organized like this: 2a and then 3b, and it will basically have it like that. So the roll number will be here, and then we will, after that, we will follow up with the you know, this a thing or b thing or whatever. So we are going to have that. So for that, we are going to take our f stream that we have got, and we are going to output it in there. We are going to, obviously, first of all, we need to take in the grade, actually, because we don't have the grade yet. So we are going to go ahead and get the grade, and once we get the grade, we are going to say fs, and we are going to get put in inside of the fs, we are going to put a value, which is going to be basically, it will consist of the roll number, which is I, represented by I, and I'm going to go ahead and add in a space after that, and then I'm going to put the grade. So I'm going to put the grade after that, and then after that I'm going to put a new line. And this, if you do it this way, it will basically cause everything to kind of work perfectly. And maybe you can add a character here if you want just one character, and this will kind of organize it into the way that we want here. Then we will work on the reading stuff. So how are we going to go ahead and actually read the grades? Now this obviously poses a little problem, which we will learn in a few seconds, but let's first of all see if our output system works. So let's start and press I, and we obviously currently only works with I, so I'm going to say I, and it will say how many grades to input. I'm going to say 32, not 32 actually, that would be too much, 5, and let's just say A, C, something like, and maybe D, and another B, and another A, I guess. Yeah, and you can see that it kind of does that. And if I open my data.txt, you can see it had laid everything out in a neat table with roll numbers and everything. So that's awesome. But the point is that once I start the application again and I just close it, then okay, the file is unaltered. But if I go ahead and like I press R and I press enter and I close, you can see that file is still kind of unaltered. But this might cause a bit of problem later, because in complex programs you might have a situation where it basically removes the whole file. But let's just actually work on the reading for now. So if that is not the case, if we did not press I, then we want to focus on reading. So how are we going to read the data from the file? So in order to get that done, essentially what we need to do is it's pretty simple. So for example, right now we are basically outputting this, so we need to so I am trying to figure out a function where we could you could view the grades of separate roll numbers as well as the overall grade. So how to do that? So for that we will need to kind of put two options here. So we will say C out, and we will say enter let's say okay, let's say enter roll number or 0 for complete list. So for complete list, the user will enter 0 because that roll number obviously will exist complete list. So 0 is not a roll number, so we can basically kind of be sure that that works. So I'm going to put a colon after that, and we are going to add an int here called no again, because these are in separate scopes. So this is a scope and this is in a separate scope. It's inside the if statement and it's inside the else statement. So these are completely different variables that have got no relation with each other. So you can kind of name them, but you cannot name another variable called no in here, but you can name it in a separate scope. Each parenthesis starts a new scope. So with that done, let's go ahead and actually take that from the user. So I'm going to, on the next line, I'm going to say C in and take the number. Now then we are going to check if the number is equal to 0. So if our number is equal to 0, now if that is the case, then we are going to basically kind of output the whole thing. For that, how are we going to do that? Well, if I go ahead and say get line, so get line, okay, so not really like that, it's fs. So if I go ahead and say fs dot, and you can see we have got a bunch of functions here. Now there are functions for reading separate amount of characters, separate amount of kind of other stuff, but what we want is we want to kind of put the whole the everything, the whole thing that we have got. So we want to put everything, all of the contents of the file on the screen. So how to achieve that? Now a really simple way to actually do that, content of the whole files onto the screen, which will save us a lot of time and will work for smaller files like this, will be to just say fs.readBuff, say rdbuff, read buffer, short for read buffer. This is a function, you need to call it like that, and this will basically return your string containing the whole file basically, and you can basically just see out this. So yeah, that's as simple as that. So if I start, what you should see is that I can say R and I can say 0, and that should output the complete list. And now we need to worry about what happens if the number is not 0. So we need to move to a particular line, and then we need to output that line only depending on what the number is. So how is that going to be possible? Now there is not really an easy way to do that in C++, but you can create a string called s, and you can basically loop your way to the place. So you can say for, and you can say just say add in a for loop here, and let me add a proper for loop here. Just press forgot. Okay, so here you can see Visual Studio basically fills it up for me, and I'm going to say I is less than number okay, not number, I is less than number minus 1, because we want to loop to the line before this, or because if you don't do that it will cause problems. So that works. And why is it giving an error here? Okay, with this done, what you need to basically do with this is we need to go ahead and say fs.ignore. Now this function basically ignores the data because we do not want the data before our roll number, so we are just going to do that. And std stream size count is equal to, you can see this, and then you need to add in a delimiter, which means a this delimiter, by the way, is the thing that file terminate that you want to like terminate to. So this in our case is the new line, because whenever new line comes we want to ignore till that, and we want to keep doing it until we reach our desired line. And as far as the maximum limit is concerned, you just can say something like numeric limits. Now this is a kind of a thing that you can use, and for that you need to kind of put this here. So this is a template. So numeric limits is basically allows you to kind of check limits for different kind of stuff, and you can use stream size here, and this will basically allow you to this basically means, so this you can just memorize if you don't understand, but the idea is that we have got this numeric limits thing, and this is basically allows us to get different numeric limits, and we are telling that we want to get numeric limits related to the stream size, and so we are providing it with that, and then we are getting max, which means the maximum amount of characters that the stream can actually store. So we are going to get all of those characters, because we do not want it to end based on characters, since our lines can be as much as we want, they can be longer. So we are going to say a new line for the delimiter, and after that this will basically work. So after we do this will so our file has got basically a pointer which defines where the file's position is. So by default it's here, then it will go to here, then here, here, and here until we reach our desired line. So after this we can say fs dot and you can kind of basically use this to now you can actually output the new line. So but if we go ahead and say something like fs and we say this, and then we are going to get a, so we are going to have to put 2 here values. I am not sure that we should have a string, because you can obviously like use a read line function, but I'm going to do it separately because you might want to use that data. So I'm going to have an int called roll number, and I'm going to have a character called grade. Because these are again different from these grades, because these are in a separate scope. So we are going to take the roll number, which is always put first in our file, and then the grade. So we are going to kind of do it like we do when we are reading anything else. After doing that, we can basically say cout, and we are going to say our roll number, and then we are going to put a we are going to put a new line, a space after that, and going to put the grade, and then we are going to put a new line. So that will basically complete up our program. So if I start and I go ahead and say R, and I say, let's say number 5, then you can see it says 5A, and you can see that is correct. So this is pretty much it for this video. I'll see you in the next one, in which we will try to implement this to our account class. So make sure to stay tuned for that, and share this video with other people, and bye.